I know a lot of our customers are aware of this already, but we'll rehash it. And we want to just let everyone know. Some people ask, like, why do you make Abyss headphones in the USA? And I don't know. I mean, it seems obvious to us because we're here. That's where we live, right? We grew up here. We were born here. We're citizens. But better yet, there's a number of reasons. I mean, there's many we can cover on this.
I would say primarily it's really about control. And that encompasses pretty much all aspects. If you have a third party manufacturing it, especially if they're not in the same country or they don't speak the same language, it can be difficult to communicate precisely what you're trying to get done. And you don't have that direct control. You can't really feasibly go there and bark orders at them. So if there's an issue with something, it can't be corrected as easily.
Well, you probably could if you're General Electric or something like that.
If you're a very large company,
you have people on the ground.
Probably have
there.
people on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for someone like us, it's just not practical.
Yeah.
We're not big enough to be able to keep a manufacturing company overseas in business exclusively. So we're just a customer to them. And as a result, it tends to mean you're not the priority.
Yeah, right.
And that's the same story with manufacturers in the U.S. too. It doesn't matter really what country you're in. If you're comparatively a small percentage of what they do, you're not that important.
You're
to
at the
them.
bottom of the totem pole, so to speak.
But if you make it yourself, you're your number one customer. So it solves those problems right there. You have absolute control. You could do anything you want. You can make anything you want. You could do any correction you want. And since you have the manufacturing in-house, it tends to mean you could make changes faster. Oftentimes, you could even reduce costs, which is helpful all around. Usually, you make better quality parts. If you have a minor issue, you understand why. You could work it out. You have better communication between the manufacturing side and the assembly side. Huge number of advantages actually manufacturing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of took this upon ourselves to do it everything as much as we can in-house, primarily to control our destiny. And a lot of that encompassed what you just said. But the reality of the situation is, we learn from the process as well. We learn by making mistakes and in correcting them. That's how we advance the product, the quality of the product, the sonic character of the product. Everything about what high-end audio is baked into us here.
Well, the other thing is usually when you have someone else manufacture something for you, you get them in batches, right? So you get like 1,000 of one part. And if anything's out of tolerance, you have a problem, then
they're all
you
shot.
got 2 months to make more. And nothing to ship.
And not only that, they'll probably say, oh, it was your fault. They'll be pointing fingers. Oh, it was your fault because you didn't give us the proper spec, and blah, blah, blah. And so, not only are you out the parts and the time, you're out the money too.
Yeah.
This is a big issue. And I don't think the consumer would be aware. But unfortunately, the way things tend to work in industry is it's always someone else's fault. It's very hard to get accountability for the fact that I pointed out earlier. You're not a priority to them. So you could say, oh, I wouldn't pay for that, or I would send it back. And yeah, you could try that. But generally speaking, they're not going to want to do business with you again, or they're not going to do what you expect. So usually you just kind of got to deal with the issue. You got to figure out a way around it. And that is not an ideal solution.
Yeah, and a lot of it is due to miscommunication too when you're dealing with outside vendors, and that is an issue because even though you're speaking the same language, so to speak, or maybe not if you're dealing with other countries, all it takes is one word to be misunderstood and the whole part shot. And I mean, that's why they have specs, and that's why we design with SolidWorks and blah, blah, blah. But we've dealt with vendors in the past that can't read our SolidWorks file because they're not willing to pay for the subscription service for it, right?
Well, it really depends on what you're trying to get done. Because, of course, you could always come up with tolerances that if they achieve this, the part's perfect every time.
Well, that's true.
You could always come up with a spec that's perfect. But then you give them this complex spec.
And they don't make it the same.
They don't understand what it means. They don't have the way to measure the part with the tolerance that you claim. And so maybe they think they're providing a good quality part, but if you demonstrate to them that they are in fact not doing that, well, it's still the same issue. They're still not going to be able to correct it. They're not willing to typically.
And the reason
correct.
is too, which we should bring up, is because like with what you do, you're designing the part in SolidWorks or whatever program, right? That part has to be converted to machine language to be cut on a machine like a CNC. And that conversion process, right, is where the finesse comes in. You know, right? I mean, you got to tweak the machine code in order to get the part to look the part, in order to be what you actually wanted it to be. If you gave a file to somebody, which let's say 10 different companies,
Yeah.
and you said machine this part, would and even with given tolerances on the spec, would they all look the same?
No, they would all be different parts.
Right. And therein lies the problem. You know, the only way to keep that consistent is to keep it in house. Or the other way to do it, you need someone who really cares about your parts, which brings us back to Doe, because you said, who's going to care if you're a small company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're keeping them in business, if you're the reason why their lights are on, they're going to care. But unfortunately, in this type of industry, you need incredible scale for that. Almost no companies in this industry really have that power. Aside from very large companies, like maybe Apple, for the most part, it's just not a priority to deal with a small vendor. So maybe they'll try. Maybe they'll try to care about your parts, but it only goes so far. They're not willing to put the time in because it's just too expensive.
Well, we have an aerospace company nearby, a few of them actually here in New York, but one of them I can think of is Moog, and Moog does basically all aerospace. And they've got a quite large facility just full of CNC machines of all sorts because they make their own parts for aerospace. And it's pretty obvious when you look at when we had other people try to make some of our parts, right, years and years ago, the quality difference that occurs from that versus doing it yourself, or not doing it yourself, but doing it in your own facility with your own machines, with your own eyes, seeing the outcome, it's night and day. Like you can't even compare, having somebody make a part for you, because usually there's no care involved because that's all they do is make parts for people all day long. It's just they open a file, they cut the parts, it's on to the next file, next part.
Yep.
There's no, it's like this, they just spit them out. That's the way it works in in the machining world. Where when you look at the aerospace, I think a lot of these companies probably have everything in house because they have to. They have to certify the part. They have to know the source even of the raw materials. They have to do that because it's all about traceability and so on in the aerospace and aircraft industry. So, and again, they also know that if they farm that out to somebody else, they'd have a million problems where people's lives depend on this stuff. It's not a headphone, all right? But technically speaking, we machine to that level. I mean, the quality
absolutely.
level is crazy on our stuff. The tolerances are nuts.
You almost have to if you want to be considered to be a leader. If you're a manufacturer and you're simply providing a specification to someone, you tell them make this part, and they provide you with the part. If you don't understand what goes into making that part, you don't know the cost drivers. And machining we talked about a lot, but that's a good example because I think it's a bit more visual than some of the other processes. But if you understand intrinsically exactly how that part's made, and you understand all the way through to manufacturing and assembling of the finished goods, it allows you to more or less maximize the value in the product. You could eliminate things that really aren't required, that don't provide value for the customer, don't really matter for the end product, and you could put a little bit more time, effort, and money into the stuff that does matter. And so I think really it's not necessarily that we're making things in the U.S. because it's superior to other countries. It's simply because we're in the U.S. and making it local is very beneficial. Having people that understand how everything's made and being able to talk with the person that made the part to understand why it is the way it is.
You mean the guy in the back room?
Yeah, that's critical, right? You just walk to the back and say, hey, we're having a problem with this.
Yeah.
Why is it? What can we do?
Well, that's the beauty of having our own in-house machine shop. We're running 4 CNCs now, full out. We've got lasers for cutting metals and materials. So really, I mean, we have control. We have control over the entire product at this point. There's nothing that we can't vary or change if need be. And I mean, right now, the three models we do have are highly refined. You've made dozens of revisions over time to them. And again, we're able to do that and more refine the product because it's in-house. Where most companies, they design it, it's machined, and the part just continues to be made until it's not made anymore. So that's another thing you kind of get with us is as time goes on, there's a continuous refinement of all kinds of little things that people just might not notice on a photo.
Yeah.
Well, that is true because it's not even a spec thing. Even if someone meets your spec exactly, it's like they don't know what the parts are being used for.
Right.
So
and they don't really care.
Yeah,
either.
they don't have to make suggestions and here you could do this a little differently or something like that.
Right.
But we're doing that all the time. So
Yeah, it's like a continuous feedback loop.
yeah,
You know, what the parts go to our assembly area, they're assembled. If there's something that isn't going together right or something's wrong, it goes right back to production, right? And give them feedback saying, hey, what's going on? The tolerance is out, something like that. Everything's done on the fly. Any issues that may arise for whatever reason, for various reasons.
well, what it has turned into though is that after doing that a bunch of times, now we got like all these micrometers out and we're measuring every single angle because we're like, oh, I guess we got to measure this now
Yeah.
to make sure they're all the same.
By the time the part gets to assembly,
Yeah.
it's perfect. It'd be extremely rare to have a part that makes it to assembly that has any kind of issue because it's all been looked over 10 times, you know, right through the finishing process. I mean, you think there's a number of processes and eyes that go through it. We had Ethan here the other day from the cable company, and Brian back there was finishing the slider mechanism on the Diana headphone, remember? And I went over there. I don't think I was the only one there, but I took Ethan and his wife there, and Brian just happened to be masking the slider mechanism, you know, and I said, well, Brian, I'm not even sure of all the steps you go through just for that one part on Diana. Why don't you just explain it to him? And Brian very succinctly went through about a 2-minute explanation of the processes involved to make the one little slider portion that goes up and down on Diana, because it's it's probably like a dozen steps or something just in finishing alone. That's
It's just
after the part's
finishing, yeah.
machined, you know. And I mean, because the slider part's component's different than the upper part, different color, different paint. There's anodizing involved. There's coatings involved. There's removal of coatings involved. There's recoating. There's removal of material for the Abyss logo. It's just like, I said, it's crazy, but you just think there's one little part, right, that we do, and to get
looks like
to
nothing.
that level, yeah. And it's like it's an unbelievable amount of steps on that one part.
Well, speaking of that exact same part, just last week I added another one for Keith another angle to measure on that. Yeah, so I'm like, we should probably start measuring these.
Yeah.
So that was a late one, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, a fair point, because if you're a supplier manufacturing that part and you're giving it to someone else, you don't know how it's used. So you have two options: measure almost nothing or measure absolutely everything. And sometimes things really don't matter. If it's off by 0.001 inch, sometimes it makes absolutely no difference. You can't see it, doesn't affect the function. Other times it's critical. So measuring the right things in the right way, it's reasonable, and that gives you some financial advantage. That gives you, as a result, a better part that costs less to manufacture than if you had an outside vendor doing it.
A lot less waste.
Yes.
Because if you did have an outside vendor making these parts, you'd be throwing a lot of them into the scrap bin.
That's a fair point too, because if you had an outside vendor doing it, again, they don't know how it's being used. So it's hard for them to know the problems you're having with the product, how it assembles, and as a result, the issues you face in the assembly. But if you're assembling it, if you could just walk back and talk to the person that's making it, it's a different story. Because if you're having an issue with something, you could figure out what's causing it. And as a result, you probably could take steps to mitigate it if it's economical to do so. And usually it is. Usually it's very easy to do that. You could change something like the fixturing, how it's held in the machine or how it's machined. You could change a tool path or something like that, where it doesn't cost any time, doesn't really cost any money, and the part is more often closer where you need to be, and there's less waste. There's less wasted labor, resources, and man hours and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest issue. I remember how much scrap we had in the past just from us learning our own mistakes and what we needed to measure and what we didn't need to measure. And it just, luckily we have less and less of that nowadays because we are measuring and checking and QCing so many steps in the path.
Well, the biggest bane of everybody's existence, though, as we've come to find out, everybody has the same problem, is always anodize, right?
Yeah, well,
Matching colors.
all finishes.
Because that's the thing. It's out of your hands. You're not doing it, right? And the parts are perfect, right?
Well,
When you send them out and you hope to get them back
Yeah.
nice, black or whatever color.
Yeah.
And that's
Never
the last
happens.
step. And then,
Yeah, it works half the time.
Yeah, you make the part and in the end the guy finishing it screws it up.
We've had that happen far too many times.
So you spent all the money to make the parts and then you mess
That's-
up a batch of 500 pieces
and
or
there's
1,000
no good
pieces.
way to fix it.
Yeah,
That's literally why we finish the parts ourselves
Yeah.
in-house now,
yeah.
because of anodized issues. And we went to 3 vendors, always the same issues.
They all screwed
You
up.
get a few batches
in a
good, you
different
get
way.
one bad.
Yeah.
And that one bad batch, it's bad. It really
And you
stings.
sit there and you're cringing every time you send the parts out for finishing because it's like you just don't know what you're going to get. When you get
A
that-
lot of
when it
times
comes
our
back.
parts can't be re-anodized.
No,
They can be
right.
done once. You can't etch
You
and
can't
redo it.
strip that finish without ruining the part.
Yeah. So there's nothing you can do. The parts are trash.
Yeah. And they don't care. They look at it as a part. They
They
think it's,
don't.
so what? We'll just redo it for you. No, you can't redo it. It's a total loss. We're going to have to redo it from scratch again. So, I mean, there's no sympathy. That's the problem, right?
No.
No sympathy at all. They're like, whatever. It's like,
Yeah,
whatever.
No big deal. Just
yeah. You just ruined
3 weeks of someone's
$10,000
life.
worth of components.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. No big deal. Yeah. Let's just start again. So, yeah, I mean, we could go on, but I think people get it, right? It's like, it's obvious why we do things here, where we live, where we are.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think we'd have it any other way because you just look at the way things are built here, the way we build things. It's crazy. I mean, you know, and you talk about finishes like the easy finish would be to make something out of plastic, which is very common in the consumer electronics space. You know, you mold plastic. It's that color through.
Yeah.
You know, it's simple. There's no finishing involved. It's a one-step process. Bang, the part pops out, and you just slap it together.
Yeah.
And that's why you see that a lot in consumer electronics is you use the plastic because it's simple. It's simple.
Well, once you have it all figured out and the mold's made, yeah.
But at our end of things, simpler isn't necessarily better in terms of the components and how the thing's built. That's not what
Well,
we're after.
we're doing something that I think is very atypical. We're trying to design and manufacture a product that when people get, they're really happy with. They think this is just spectacular. This is really a special product for them. And a lot of our customers feel that way, and that's wonderful. We are shipping stuff that people really cherish. And to me, that's valuable.
Yeah, the feedback is priceless. I mean, people love it. You know, we're seeing that more and more. People that are newer to this. Not even I don't even want to say hobby, but just in general, having a personal listening device that you could put on your head and feel like you're almost there, like it transports you back in time to the recording. You know, and we're seeing that more and more. People are like, they didn't realize that this existed. And we're getting a lot of new customers into space that are like just going, wow. I just read a comment today or yesterday on one of our YouTube videos, and the guy was saying, this is the first time I've ever had tears in my eyes. I've never had that happen in my life before. He just got one at Diana Phi or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, I've never had that happen before. And it's wild when you see that. You know what I mean? That's life-changing. That's life-altering because he's appreciating this music in a whole different way. And that's awesome. I mean, that's really awesome.
Yep. And you can do it anytime, anywhere now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just pop it on your head.
Yep.
Crazy when you think about where we've taken this niche industry, you know. So anyway, on that note, I think we've kind of covered enough of that with Made in USA. We'll continue to make all our products, our parts, as much as we can possible in USA. And thank you very much for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Take care of yourselves, everyone.